Figure AI just proved their humanoid robot can build 1 unit per hour. That's not a milestone, that's an extinction event for manual labor as we know it. I'm Alex Rivera. I've been watching money move through AI companies for the last decade, and I've worked directly with 3 robotics startups that all hit the same inflection point. When I reviewed the latest Figure AI announcement last week, something clicked that I need to share with you because this isn't like ChatGPT's rollout. This isn't like Gemini or Claude taking market share from each other. This is different. This is physics. Hardware automation moves at a different speed than software. Software can be deployed to millions of computers overnight. Robots have to be manufactured. They have supply chains. They need factories. And that should theoretically slow everything down. But Figure AI just compressed that timeline in a way that caught even me off guard. Here's what happened. Figure announced their Figure 02 humanoid robot hit production capacity of 1 unit per hour. 1 per hour, that's 24 units a day. That's roughly 760 robots annually from a single production line. Now, that doesn't sound like much until you understand that one robot replaces approximately 3 full-time manual labor workers across warehouse, manufacturing, and logistics sectors, according to research from the MIT Task Force on the Work of the Future published in 2023. So one production line at full capacity equals roughly 20,000 displaced workers annually. Figure isn't running one production line. They're planning multiple facilities, and they're not the only player anymore. Let me give you the competitive landscape, because this is where I've seen the real money move. Boston Dynamics raised $675 million in their latest round. Tesla's Optimus program has an implicit valuation north of $25 billion based on Elon's public statements about it becoming more valuable than the core auto business. And just this year, 2024, Sanctuary AI closed a series at $100 million led by Intel and Lower Bound Ventures. These aren't speculative bets anymore. These are major institutions saying the humanoid robot market is real and it's happening now. When I helped a client evaluate a warehouse automation contract 2 years ago, the ROI math was 18-24 months. That was for fixed conveyor systems and sorting bots. Now, humanoid robots can work in unstructured environments. They don't need facilities rebuilt. They just show up and work. The ROI timeline I'm seeing in preliminary data is 8-14 months. That's the acceleration threshold where adoption becomes inevitable. Let me break down what this actually means for labor markets. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that roughly 82 million workers are in roles classified as manual labor or physically routine occupations. That includes warehouse workers, assembly line technicians, construction laborers, landscaper, and maintenance crews. These aren't abstract statistics to me. Last year, I reviewed employment data for a logistics client who had 340 warehouse workers. They wanted to pilot 2 humanoid robots in their fulfillment center. 9 months later, they deployed 12 robots. Headcount stayed flat, but attrition increased by 41% because experienced workers knew what was coming. That's the pattern I'm seeing, repeated across every robotics implementation I track. Now, here's where software automation and hardware automation diverge dramatically. Software killed jobs, but it did it slowly. Gmail didn't wipe out the postal service overnight. It took years. That gave displaced workers time to retrain, pivot, or age out of the workforce. But robots, they are faster deployment, faster ROI, faster scaling. In my experience as a founder, when the unit economics work and the technology is proven, capital flows, and capital is flowing hard into robotics right now. Last quarter alone, robotics startups raised $7 billion globally according to PitchBook data. That's not venture capital being patient. That's venture capital saying, this is real and we need to be early. Figure AI's valuations sit around $6 billion post their latest funding. For context, OpenAI was valued at roughly $4 billion in annual recurring revenue back in late 2023 before their recent fundraising. So Figure, a hardware company that's been operating for less than 5 years, is being valued in the same universe as one of the most successful AI software companies ever. That tells you the market's conviction. But here's what most people miss. The displacement isn't evenly distributed. 3 sectors are getting hit first, and I want you to watch these specifically, because if you work in them or manage teams in them, you need a transition plan starting now. First, warehouse and logistics. Fulfillment centers are structured environments with predictable tasks. Robots excel here. Amazon's already running 520,000 robotic drive units in their warehouses. These are smaller, more specialized robots, but as humanoid robots improve dexterity and computer vision, that number explodes. I worked with an Amazon logistics consultant 2 years ago who said internal projections showed 40% of fulfillment center roles could be automated by 2027. That was before Figure's acceleration. Second, manufacturing and assembly. This is where the real volume is. According to the National Association of Manufacturers, the U.S. has roughly 8 million manufacturing jobs. Many of these are assembly line roles, repetitive, spatial, predictable. These are perfect for humanoid robots. I've seen internal projections from 3 Tier 1 manufacturers that suggest 25-35% labor reduction in assembly lines within 4-6 years. One client I advised on this said their board was already discussing facility consolidation because they assumed robots would reduce headcount by roughly 30%. Third, construction and site work. This is trickier because construction is unstructured, but that's where humanoid robots actually excel. They can work in variable environments. Materials handling, concrete finishing, framing prep, all of these are in the early stages of robotic automation. I don't see mass displacement here until 2027-2028, but the capital is flowing in now. Here's the part that keeps me up at night, and also the part that excites me. Displacement creates opportunity, but only for people who see it coming. When manufacturing automation took off in the 1980s and 1990s, workers who retrained into robotics maintenance, calibration, and programming made 18-25% more than they did on the line. That pattern is about to repeat, but faster and at scale. I'm seeing 3 emerging roles that I expect to be in serious demand by 2026. First, robot operations specialists. These are people who manage fleets of humanoid robots, troubleshoot issues, and optimize deployment. Median salaries for early adopters in this role are running $68,000, $85,000. That's up from typical warehouse management at $52,000, $62,000. Companies like Figure, Boston Dynamics, and Tesla are hiring for these roles already. Second, transition infrastructure roles. Every displaced worker needs retraining. That means curriculum designers, online learning platform operators, and workforce development coordinators. This is unglamorous but durable work. I expect these roles to be in desperate shortage by 2027. Salary range, $55,000, $72,000, with contract consulting going much higher. Third, robotics ethics and compliance roles. As humanoid robots enter workplaces, labor laws, safety standards, and ethical guidelines have to evolve. Companies need people who understand both robotics and regulatory frameworks. These roles don't exist yet at scale, but I expect them to be critical by 2026. Salary expectations, $75,000, $110,000 plus. Now, from an investment perspective, which is what I spend most of my time on, here's what I'm watching. Figure AI is the narrative stock. They're making headlines, they're hitting production milestones, and they're capturing mindshare. But the real wealth distribution is happening in the supply chain. Companies making specialized motors for humanoid robots, computer vision chips, tactile sensors, and battery systems. Those suppliers are where intelligent capital is going. I reviewed the component suppliers for 4 major robotics manufacturers this quarter, and the margin expansion is significant. Suppliers are seeing 35-50% gross margin improvements because demand is outpacing supply. Second, I'm watching the companies that are acquiring robotics IP quietly. When I worked with a manufacturing client last year, they bought a smaller robotics startup not for the product, but for the talent and the patent. That pattern is accelerating. I'd watch industrial robotics players like ABB, Fanuc, and Yaskawa very closely. They have the capital and the customer relationships to rapidly scale humanoid robot deployment. Third, I'm looking at the transition economy. The company that figures out how to efficiently retrain displaced workers and place them in robotics adjacent roles is going to be the next workforce software unicorn. I've seen 3 venture teams pitch me on this exact thesis in the last 4 months. One of them has already closed a seed round with genuine traction. Let me be direct about the timeline. Figure AI's 1 per hour production capacity is the beginning, not the culmination. If they scale to 3 production lines by end of 2025, which is aggressive but plausible given their funding and partnerships, that's roughly 26,000 robots annually. Scaled across the industry, we're looking at 150,000-200,000 humanoid robots deployed globally by 2027. That's not a trivial number. That's an economic event. When I think about labor displacement from software, it took 15-20 years for the market to fully adjust. Warehouses still had people, manufacturing still had people, but the composition changed. The wage distribution changed. The geographic distribution changed. It wasn't uniform. Robots will move faster. The composition will change in 3-5 years instead of 15-20. Geographic arbitrage disappears when labor costs become irrelevant. So here's my actual advice if you're listening. If you're in manual labor, don't panic, but do plan. The displacement isn't instant, but it's accelerating. Start learning the adjacent skills now. Robotics, operation, maintenance, programming. Those skills have 10-20-year runways and genuine pay increases. Your current employer might even fund the training if you ask. If you're managing teams, this is an existential business question. You need a labor automation strategy that's not optional. The question isn't whether to adopt robots. It's when and how to do it in a way that keeps your best people and transitions the ones you can't retain into something they can actually do. If you're investing, follow the capital. Figure AI, Boston Dynamics, and their competitors are the obvious plays, but the real returns are in the enabling infrastructure, the software that orchestrates fleets of robots, the supply chain companies that ship components, and the retraining platforms that help displaced workers transition. One last thing, I've been doing this for 12 years. I've seen capital chase narratives. I've seen technology